we're getting into infinitives. There are always two infinitives in Hebrew. In biblical Hebrew, infinitive construct and infinitive absolute. I know I have used it as infinitive constructus and infinitive absolutus just because the construct and absolute comes from Latin, and this is how it looks like in Latin. But I think our English textbooks only give construct and absolute. That's what we will be using then. So infinitive construct and absolute does remind us of something that we know from the nouns, right? We know the construct chain, and the noun that is being shortened is called, has this construct form, and the noun that appears in the very end of the construct chain is always in the absolute form, which is also a lexical form, the one that you meet in the lexicons and in the lexica or in dictionaries. So this way, the same thing is happening to infinitive, right? Just as nouns, and we know why, because infinitives are verbal nouns. Okay, let's say they are verbal nouns, and that's why they also have two forms. So infinitive construct is just bound to be shorter, and it has this form, ktov, as short as possible. Seriously, we only have two syllables, and both of them have, well, the first one has a really short vowel and vocal schwa, and the next one has holem, but again, it's just holem, it's not even a holem vav, even though it can appear with a holem vav, can happen. But generally it's ktov, and versus, just look at this one, katov, I mean, full long vowel under the first root letter, and the holem vav, unchangeable long vowel after the second root letter, which gives us two long vowels. You see the difference? You see the idea of absolute and construct? That's a difference, and you need to be ready for the way they look, because infinitive construct is just going to have the same form as imperative. This is adorable how easy Hebrew is, right? So ktov is also ktov in the infinitive construct, but it will be used in different contexts, right? It will be used in a different situation, not where somebody talks to someone and is saying ktov. We don't care about it right now in this video. We're not describing the functions of each of the conjugations, but just look at how easy the forms are. I just want to really encourage you to see what's the whole idea behind it. So ktov, on the one hand, the shorter construct form, infinitive construct, right? Ktov, just the same form as in the imperative, talking to a man, I'm saying ktov, right? Ktov, right? And then katov for infinitive absolute, which is super easy to remember as well, because its second part is just the same as in the infinitive construct, and the first one is just the same as you would expect in kal. Perfect. Remember, it always starts with a kamatz. The other way of remembering the infinitive absolute forms, song / commandments, right? Shamor v'zachor. Shamor v'zachor. Katov. Shamor katov. Well, of course, it's not about writing, but the commandment, Shamor v'zachor, keep and remember, talking about Shabbat, talking about keeping Shabbat. So katov, those two forms, and then the only forms that are left are participles. And here we want to talk about them just a little bit and say participles are wonderful forms. They have so many possibilities. They are the forms that are being used for the present tense in modern Hebrew, but also in biblical Hebrew. So just as we talked about the infinitives, saying that these are the verbal nouns, talking about participle, we need to say that this is the verbal adjective. Verbal adjectives. And when we think about verbal adjectives or adjectives per se, they usually have four forms describing masculine, like a man, a woman, men in plural, and women in plural. Four forms. Same thing is happening in the participles. In English, it's beautifully easy to translate as writing. For example, we do have here the same katav verb. And so whatever verb it is, plus the ing at the end gives us the idea of the
of description, right, of the adjectival, but at the same time verbal idea, because it has to do with an action. So writing talking about a man, writing talking about a woman, writing talking about men or group of people, mixed group of people, and writing talking about women or feminine objects.
So we have kotev, writing. Let's use it as an adjective at the moment, writing. Kotevet, writing, but talking about a woman, feminine. Kotvim, writing, man. Kotvot, writing, women. This way, when we get into the verbal part, of course, we understand that each one of these forms will supply us with three possibilities. It will be able to work with three pronouns. The pronouns are going to appear in a second. I'm gonna add them here. But for each of the forms, be it singular, it's going to be first, second, and third person as possibility for man, for woman, for a group of people, or for a group of women. Of course, all of these possibilities can correlate or be used with an object, depending on its gender and its number. But again, if we're talking about the persons, remember the first person is always talking about ourselves, about me or us, and second person is always talking directly, eyes to eyes, face to face, to someone, and the third person is always talking about somebody else, those people, or this man or that woman. Remember, third person is always talking about somebody else. So I have added blocks with the pronouns, and at this point I hope they are easy for you. So if you look at them, it's ani, ata, hu, right? All three are possibilities for a masculine form. Any man can say ani, ata can be said to anyone who is masculine, and hu will be he. If kotev is the masculine singular form, it will correlate to all three persons in singular, right? So ani, ata, and hu, all of them masculine. I, you, talking to a man, he, right, talking about man. Kotevet is a feminine singular. It's going to correlate to agree, to be able to agree, let's say, with any of these three persons again. Ani, I, at, you, woman, and he, talking about a woman. Now, important is to, whenever you parse, whenever you see this verb in the text, to be able to determine what is happening, which person is it? Is it the context where somebody is talking to a woman? The translation, then, it's going to be second person feminine singular, and the translation is going to be you are writing. But again, if we're moving to the plural forms, we have the kotvim for masculine plural, right? The im, because of the adjective, remember, because of the noun, we know this is absolute clear masculine plural form, and so it can correlate to any person in the plural, first, second, or third. Anachnu, we, atem, you all, right? Masculine form, and hema, they, masculine form, and then kotvot with the feminine ending will give us any of the persons that have the first, second, or third, the possibility of the feminine plural form. So anachnu, we, women, kotvot. Aten, you all, women, kotvot, you are writing. Hen, henna, they, those women, them, they, kotvot, are writing. The next set of the participles, which is the one that is designated to passive verbs. So we get again into the same idea. We are describing some things because it's still participle, it's verbal adjective, and just as the usual way, we have masculine, feminine, singular, and plural. Tov, tova, tuvim, tovot, right? Tov, remember the adjective. If you just remember this one form, you will always be able to remember the endings of participles, be it the set above, the active participles in Kal, or the set on the bottom of the slide in the right corner, the ones that we're talking about right now, the set of passive participles in Kal. The endings will be the same. Katuv, ktuva, ktuvim,
Ktuvot.
Because it's going to be again those four: katuv, ktuva, ktuvim, ktuvot. Katuv, ktuva, ktuvim, ktuvot. The same table with the pronouns. See, the same thing is happening. It's just the same thing. But just so that you know how different are the forms, right? Remember we had ktov, katov. Now for the passive form of the participle, it's going to be katuv. It's going to be the u sound that gives us the passive form. But in Hebrew, it's usually going to be the u sound that will give us passive forms, even in the other stems. The passive stems, the passive binyanim are going to have just the same, again, the u sound. But the form itself, I mean, katov has been the infinitive absolute, and infinitive absolute usually will really have this unchangeable o sound. Even with the other verbs. Remember we said the lexical form for the hollow verbs, for the biconsonantal verbs, are going to be the infinitive construct. The infinitive absolutes will usually have an o sound anyway, at all times, even for the hollow verbs. Now for the passive participle, it's going to be an u sound that will give them away, so katuv. And how do we translate that? It's masculine, singular, and it's written, right? So katuv is written, ktuva is written, but something that is feminine, ktuvim, written, plural, masculine, plural, things or beings, ktuvot, feminine, plural. And again, this is why the same set of pronouns just correlates exactly the same way as above with active participles. Katuv, masculine singular, can be he, can be you, or can be I if I am a man, right? So, ani katuv would mean I am written. I am written or I'm being written. By the way, the participle is considered to be this incomplete form, incompleted form, just as we talked about the perfect, imperfect, but participles usually used as not only incomplete, but as a form in progress, in a process. Continuous, progressive, that can be an idea of this kind of action, but I'm not bent on using all those terms, even though we can discuss them. We can talk about the action that is happening in the text, if it's being progressed in a progressive continuous action or not. But I know it's really a big topic for English grammar. It's huge in the English grammar, the idea of being progressive or completed action, non-completed action, that it determines the necessity to talk about this the kind of action for Hebrew. But Hebrew in itself does not need this kind of differentiation. It's not in the focus, let's say. Katuv, again, masculine singular, ani, ata, hu katuv, he is written. Okay, hu katuv. Tuva, first person, ani ktuva, I'm written. At ktuva, talking to a woman, saying you are written in the book of life, right? Sefer Chachai. He ktuva, she's written in the book of life. Again, we're stuck with the book of life. Ktuvim, anachnu ktuvim, we are written. Atem, y'all are written. Ktuvim, hem, they are written. All talking about men or about a mixed group. And ktuvot, if talking about women, I would say anachnu ktuvot, we are written. If we are women, and aten, atena, hen, henna. Now I'm also repeating these older forms, archival, maybe you could say biblical Hebrew forms of the pronouns, which are not written here, but if you have learned your personal pronouns, of course, you know them. And so to finish talking about all the conjugations, remember it's more than just those that are written here: perfect, imperfect, imperative, infinitive construct, infinitive absolute. If participle, you would need to tell if it's active or if it's passive. Remember, it's never just participle active, participle passive. Then do not forget that imperative also has two brothers, cohortative and gessive. Cohortative being the first person volitional and gessive being the third person volitional. And mostly, and then do not forget about this perfect with verb consecutive or verb conversive, as well as imperfect with verb consecutive or verb conversive, which will necessarily change the meaning of the outcome of this last point of your parsing, where you will have to be talking about the meaning of the of the given verb, and you'll have to say if it's something that is in the past or in the future, right? Because we remember that verb consecutive turns the action from its previous into the very opposite, and if it's future most of the times, or rather past, because imperfect with verb consecutive will mostly give us the past tense and mostly narration, among others. Okay, I think we talked enough about parsing. I hope this is helpful. Write your questions if you have any, and I hope this was. I hope this will bring you further. Now remember, whatever book you're using, whatever book you're reading, wherever you have all those forms where you can look at, repeat with the same root, all the forms from perfect, all the paradigms, right? Just read them aloud a couple of times. Then these forms will actually stick in your mind. You will just, without special effort, you will memorize them just because you've heard them enough. And whenever you will see them, you'll be thinking, okay, well, this sounds familiar. This is kind of an intuitive feeling, intuitive learning that we need for language, just by using it, just by having said it enough times. You have a wonderful time. Thank you for being in this video with me. You can always show your appreciation with a like, and remember, the Jewish people are not just characters from the old book. They're real people. We need your prayers, we need your voices, we need you to be on our side, and you want to be on our side because God is on our side. Baruch Hashem.